I never imagined that trying to sell my house would feel like attempting a prison break, until Cheryl got involved. After spending 5 years in this overly manicured suburban nightmare, I was more than ready to move on. A job offer across the state, better schools for my kid, and most importantly, a future free of chirpy HOA emails that find you for leaving your trash bin out 10 minutes too long. I put the house on the market, brought in a local agent, and thought I'd be packing up boxes within a few weeks. Then Cheryl stepped in. She wasn't just any neighbor. She was the unofficial queen of the cul-de-sac, a longtime board member of the HOA who treated her position like it came with a crown and scepter. The moment the for sale sign went into my yard, her overly friendly demeanor vanished like it was never there. 2 days later, I found a printed notice taped to my door. My mailbox, according to the HOA, wasn't the approved shade of beige. It was the exact same shade it had always been. I gave in and repainted the thing, but it didn't stop there. 1 week it was my grass being half an inch too high, the next it was an unapproved exterior light that had been installed years ago. Every single complaint had to be resolved to meet HOA compliance before I could move forward with the sale, and of course the board met only once a month. Totally random, right? My first showing was a disaster. Cheryl held a spontaneous yard sale in her front lawn, just a few feet from my driveway. Picture it. A dozen tables cluttered with chipped mugs, creepy porcelain cats, and what had to be a cursed marionette doll. She blasted old-school country music at full volume like she was daring my buyers to step inside. The couple barely made it through the front door before making excuses to leave. My agent chalked it up to bad luck, until it happened again. And again. Each time we scheduled a showing, something magically coincided. A leaf blower tune-up, sprinkler systems flooding the walkway, or Cheryl striking up weird, overly friendly conversations with prospective buyers. She casually mentioned that one neighbor who grills too loudly late at night. Yep, me. This wasn't just neighborly weirdness, it was a coordinated effort to sabotage my sale. What Cheryl didn't know. I document everything. My home security system, complete with porch camera and driveway cams, captured it all. The unnecessary noise, the confrontations, the conveniently timed yard work, even Cheryl whispering lies to visitors during a tour. There's been talk of mold problems, but they won't tell you unless you ask. Total fabrication. No mold, no structural problems, just slander. I brought the footage to the HOA board, expecting at least a slap on the wrist for Cheryl. Instead, I got a friendly shrug and a reminder that she's been a valued contributor to the community for over a decade. Also, my backyard fence was 2 inches too tall and needed to be corrected. That's when I realized they weren't just ignoring her. They were backing her. So I took things into my own hands. Filed a formal interference complaint with the state's real estate board. Yes, that's a real thing. Had my agent document every issue with dates and witness notes. We even started timing showings around Cheryl's car. If her driveway was empty, we scheduled immediately. Then came the power move. I hired a licensed inspector to conduct a full evaluation of my home, not for the buyer but for me. The spotless report? I printed it out and left it on the kitchen counter during showings with a cheery smiley face sticker attached. A quiet, polished middle finger wrapped in transparency. Suddenly, Cheryl's attitude flipped. She started waving to people touring the house, smiling at me like we were co-conspirators in some sitcom misunderstanding. That's when I knew she was rattled. She wasn't just obsessed with control. She was terrified of losing it. And when that inspection report sat on my counter, she realized she wasn't steering the ship anymore. I wasn't going down without a fight. For about 2 days, Karen seemed to back off. Then, I got an official letter from the HOA citing unauthorized surveillance devices visible from the street. Translation: my doorbell camera made Karen uncomfortable. Irony, right? Considering she had no issue being caught on it while pestering potential buyers. I couldn't help but laugh. I printed the letter and taped it to the HOA office door with a sticky note that read, "Smile. You're on camera too." But this is where things really took a turn. Remember that complaint I filed with the Real Estate Commission? Well, they got back to me. Turns out, interfering with a real estate transaction, especially when you're not a licensed agent, can have serious legal consequences. They opened a case and asked for any evidence I had. I happily sent them a folder I'd titled Karen Crimes Volume 1. Then something unexpected happened. A neighbor, let's call her Nancy, reached out. She'd been quietly watching everything unfold and had her own stories about Karen. But this wasn't just gossip. Nancy dropped a bombshell. Karen's term on the HOA board had officially ended last year. The board had simply failed to hold new elections and Karen just stayed in charge. Like a glitchy app that refuses to update. That was all I needed. I found a clause buried in the HOA bylaws that allowed any homeowner to call a special meeting if they gathered enough signatures. It took one weekend, a few conversations via Ring doorbells, and a bribe of free donuts. But I got the signatures I needed. The night of the meeting was electric. I played video clips showing Karen interfering with potential buyers. I presented evidence of her expired board term. I even showed a recording of her lying to a couple about mold in the house. You could practically hear jaws hitting the floor. Then someone asked the obvious. Why would she go to all this trouble just to stop him from moving? And that's when I finally said it out loud. Because Karen doesn't run this neighborhood. She just thinks she does. A motion was made. A vote was taken. Karen was officially removed from the board. But it wasn't over. I started packing, thinking I was finally in the clear. Big mistake. Just 2 days later, I received a fresh complaint, this time anonymous, accusing me of running an illegal short-term rental. Supposedly, I was operating an unlicensed Airbnb. I wasn't. Not even close. No rooms, no beds, not even a beanbag chair was for rent. But the city still had to send out an inspector, which delayed my closing by a full week. That's when I realized Karen wasn't trying to win anymore. She was just trying to make things harder for me. But then came her final, glorious mistake. Nancy, the same neighbor who told me about the expired term, had another tip. Karen had built an enclosed patio addition on the back of her house. No permits. No approval. And worse, it extended 5 feet into the protected greenbelt, land that technically belonged to the HOA. All it took was one call to code enforcement. 2 weeks later, a notice was slapped to her front door. The structure had to be demolished before she could legally sell the property. And yes, she had tried listing her home, hoping to sell it and leave before I did. Meanwhile, I accepted a full-price offer from a wonderful couple. Thanks to my thorough documentation and clean records, they moved in without a worry. On the day I moved out, I took one last glance at Karen's house. She was out back with a hammer, taking apart her illegal patio piece by piece. She didn't say anything. No eye contact. No words. Honestly, it was the quietest she'd been in years. And that, finally, was peace.